I mean, was that the most fun preseason game you've ever seen the Buffalo Sabres have? We'll talk about a 7-3 win amongst the Sabres starters, like their regular lineup against the Penguins. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Sneaky Joe DiBiase coming to you here on a weekend, a night show here, post-Sabres win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. I guess in a way it's our first post-game show, if you will, of the season, even though it is the preseason. That's okay because you kind of couldn't have had a better effort. You couldn't have had a better night for the Sabres to have with it being the preseason. We'll talk about it, how dominant the Sabres were, some of the numbers involved on that. I've got some thoughts on the style that Lindy Ruff had employed with his players in this game. We'll go through some of the goals. There are at least 3 goals I want to pick apart specifically and point out kind of different things, different lines we're doing, things to watch out for the rest of the way in the preseason here. And then once we really enter into the regular season, as we are now under 2 weeks away from the Sabres opener in Prague against the New Jersey Devils. If you want to give us your thoughts, if you want to get in on the show, you can do that by heading over to our Locked On Sabres text club. If you are not already a subscriber, you can do it very simply by just going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Sabres. And then from there on, you're just texting with us back and forth. I got some good text that I want to go through coming up in a little bit. This game at KeyBank Center, listen, not a lot of fans there, but, you know, it's a preseason in the middle of it's not the middle of the summer, but end of the summer here. Technically, today was the last day of summer, and it was like 80 degrees outside. So with that being said, I guess pretty decent crowd. And if you were in attendance, you would have got your first look at the new scoreboard, and at least on TV, it looked enormous. Speaking of TV, though, I didn't know this was coming. We got a new score bug on MSG. I don't know the last time we've had a new score bug on MSG. It's been at least 5 years, I think. But a new scoreboard out in the top left, score bug in the top left corner. I liked it. Freshens it up a little bit, catches your eye a little bit, but you're not, it's not too glitzy, glamoury away from the play. So you might have noticed that if you're watching this game, of course, on MSG. So a lot to get to on today's game, and we will start really here by looking at through some of the numbers, but some context to this game if you didn't get a chance to see it, or a lot of it. The Sabres had almost their entire regular rotation in this game, and that is because they're going to Europe. I believe they leave on Wednesday. So they had to put their NHL guys together right away, which means they had to get this group on the ice together. It was kind of like, we got to go here. We're not going to be able to give Isak Rozan and all these other guys opportunities with the NHL guys. We got to put the NHL guys together, and Lindy's got to figure out if he likes his lines or not. And what you saw in this game was Thompson centering Alex Tuch and JJ Peterka. You saw Cousins centering Jack Quinn and Zach Benson. You saw Peyton Krebs centering Yuri Kulik and Lucas Rusek. And then you had Sam Lafferty centering Nicholas Aube-Kubel and Beck Malenstein. That is an NHL lineup. That is a game night lineup. The only differences you might have in the forward ranks is Rusek out, Greenway in. Right? You might have, by the way, Greenway, I didn't see any reference to him having an injury or anything. Let me double check that Lindy didn't say something in post game about that. He did not. No. So maybe a little interesting. I said that Greenway would be the guy I would take out to put Yuri Kulik in. And that's at least what Lindy did on this night. But again, it's preseason. I don't want to know if I want to read too much into it, but just, keep an eye on that. It's the Greenway situation for opening night. That would probably be my guess, though. That'd be the one difference. Rusek out, Greenway in. And then, of course, in the blue line, the only difference would be you'd probably have Rasmus Dahlin going on the blue line if he's healthy. And at this point, it sounds like he's only going to miss a couple of practices. So you had your lineup. Pittsburgh did not. Pittsburgh didn't play Crosby. They didn't play Malkin. They didn't play Letang. They're already a pretty old group, and they probably won't want to play a lot of preseason action for these guys. What's the point? But, man, there were no top guys. This was a half-depth Penguins lineup, half Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins lineup. Like, this was not a team. This was a team the Sabres should have absolutely dominated. That being said, I do want to point out a thought that a listener of ours did have on this game tonight, and he texted it in on our group chat. He's in our text line. He said, I'm just going to say this about tonight's game. I get it's preseason. The teams are very mismatched. However, this happens every year where one team is mismatched against the other, and we have never looked as dominant as we have tonight, even against an AHL team. That is good. That is a good point. There have been preseason games in past years. Not to say that I remember all of these off the top of my head, but there have been games in past years where they should have dominated and they didn't, where they played down to their opponent tonight a little bit. And this is where I really wanted to start by diving into what happened in this game. The Sabres played this game like it was a regular season game. There's no doubt in my mind. Their energy level sustained itself throughout the entirety of the game. And I no doubt believe that Lindy Ruff wanted to instill that. He has been having them do push-ups at practice. The skating has been very hard through the first week of the Sabres training camp. So it is not a coincidence to me that in their first preseason game, they were hitting everything that moved. They were going a million miles an hour all the way to the end of the game, even in the third period when they were up 7-1 at points of that third period. They were still going hard. And I think that was more about, this is the tone we need to set. This is the style we need to play, and we need to kind of instill that early on here. But it was absolutely a Penguins lineup that they should have dominated. Some of the stars of tonight's game, absolutely the number one name on the list to get to here is JJ Peterka, who was skating on that top line with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch. Peterka comes away with 3 goals. He gets a hat trick, and he could lead the Sabres in goals this year, of course. Like, he's going to be a guy that could be flirting with 40-plus goals on the season, and in preseason game number 1, he gets a hat trick. Now, 2 of those were on the power play, and 2 of them were not typical JJ Peterka goals. One of them was the 5-on-5 goal that he scored was a nice little play. Henry Haru gets the puck up to Alex Tuch. Tuch with a nice little backhand pass to the left side where Peterka is coming in with speed, and it's a Peterka goal. It is him on the rush. He's got speed. His speed backs off the defender because the defender knows Peterka's got the speed to go right around you. So his own skating has given himself space, and what does he do with that space? He takes advantage with a great wrist shot, a finish over the blocker of the Penguins netminder, and it's a nice-looking goal there. The other 2 goals Peterka scores are power play goals, where he is standing in front of the net and gets a deflection on the puck. I don't know how common that goal is going to be for Peterka, but there's a deeper point here about the 2 goals Peterka scored. Okay, in the past, that's a goal you never see Peterka score. Him standing in front of the net on the power play. Why? Ask yourself why he scored 2 of those goals tonight, and you would never expect him to do that in the past. Because this power play with Seth Appert is supposed to be more about cycling, moving guys around, a much more fluid power play to keep penalty kills on their toes. Under Matt Ellis, and in the past, it has been a lot more of, all right, Tage, you stand here. Peterka, you stand here. Dahlin, you stand here. Skinner in the high slot. Cousins in front of the net, and nobody move. Nobody move. That was their power play. Everybody stay in your little circles, and if you get mixed up, you move back to where you were because everybody's got to be in their spot. And what I saw on this power play tonight, multiple times, was fluidity. Guys moving around. Thompson, he's at the top of the point for this 10 seconds. And then after the pass, he switches with another guy, and now he's on the wall. Jack Quinn on the first Peterka goal, the first one that was deflected on the power play. Where's the puck come from? Jack Quinn at the blue line. Jack Quinn is at the top of the point. It's kind of almost a two-man point instead of an umbrella at that moment where he releases the puck because everybody is moving around. So how does Peterka score 2 goals camped in front of the net on the power play? It's not because they want him to play in front of the net on the power play, but they want people moving around, which means there are going to be times on a power play where Peterka is shifting, where, Quinn moved back here, so everyone's moving a spot over. So Peterka, to make it easier for his teammate, has moved from the wing to now he's in front of the net. He'll move back to the wing eventually or move to the other wing, but it's just everyone is moving around, and I think that is a better way to go about your power play. They were so stagnant last year on the power play, and I thought that those 2 deflection goals are an example of a different style of power play that you're going to see from Seth Appert this season. And Peterka was great on both of them. Now, when we talk about style, it wasn't just the power play. Let's talk when we come back. I got some thoughts on those couple of goals, but what Lindy's style looked like in the first game of a preseason game. We don't want to overreact too much to it, but it's a pretty cool game. And then we got to talk about how chippy that game was. And maybe will even be a part of the style, because that game, I was surprised it did not devolve into this 5-on-5 brawl some point in the third period, because it seemed like a powder keg that maybe just never got fully sparked. That when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We're presented here on the show by FanDuel Sportsbook. You have been hearing us talk a lot about FanDuel, and man, especially now with hockey season coming up, you're going to hear us talk about it even more because we're going to have odds on these games. You could hit your futures up right now. FanDuel is offering a bunch of Sabres futures. You could look at their over-under point total, which at last check was at 87.5 points for an over-under. You could check their odds out to win the division. If you're looking for a nice long shot hockey bet, that could be what you're looking for. Or you can just bet the Sabres to make the playoffs, which is a nice bet to have a little extra rooting interest this season. And it's not just hockey, of course. America's #1 sports book at FanDuel has a little something different for you, because now through September 22nd, you still have through tomorrow. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Perfect. Do it. And by tomorrow, for week 3 NFL action, you could have your free trial up and rolling. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com now. Download America's #1 sportsbook. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, September 21st, and we're talking about a hockey game. If you want to get another listen in, if you're looking for some content this weekend, you've got a Monday Bills game, and Joe Marino from Locked On Bills has got you covered. That could be your second listen, or be sure to check out Locked On NHL. Diving in, you've got your Atlantic Division preview up on there that I took part in, and we went around the bottom teams. There's the top team guys that all got together as well, so be sure to check out Locked On NHL if you're looking for some hockey talk, or Locked On Bills for a preview of the Jaguars game on Monday night. The Sabres win this preseason affair by a score of 7-3. I did have one answer. One preseason game. I mean, how many hockey preseason games do you remember? Not many. One I do remember, which I probably should say is the most fun Sabre preseason game ever. Even though it was on the road, there was a preseason game once in Toronto where John Scott and Phil Kessel ignited an actual full line brawl, a goalie fight. Ryan Miller fought Jonathan Bernier. Miller didn't really throw many punches, but he dropped the gloves And John Scott was going after guys. Phil Kessel with the stick swinging, and one of the Leafs left the bench and got suspended. Like, that game probably should go top of the list. But this one was pretty good. And you did have a lot of that extracurricular stuff. And that's where I want to kind of dive in on Lindy Ruff's style and the changes you might see on this team. One thing I want to point out, though, is in this game, I don't really think they looked that different. In terms of their plan with the puck, their plan to move up and down the ice. There is more physicality. There was in this game, and you would expect they're going to be harder on the puck. They're going to be a harder team to play against. We said it a million times since the end of last year and since they hired Lindy Ruff. That's going to be a feature here. But in terms of their speed, their plan in the neutral zone, and they're allowing defensemen to jump up in the rush and whatnot. Like, Connor Clifton jumped up in the rush a bunch of times in this game. Lindy is not putting the restraints on these guys. This is not Ralph Kruger, who would not allow Rasmus Dahlin to move off the blue line. That would make him chip it in. Did not want Dahlin carrying it in himself. He was locking guys to the blue line. It was a much more rigid defensive style. I don't know. I mean, they did score 7 goals in this game. There was a lot of jumping up in plays for me. There was a lot of aggression. The Sabres allowed a couple of odd man chances, just a couple, because they were up taking chances. Lindy, I do think, is going to allow his players to try to score. I don't think he's going to come in and be this ultra defensive type of head coach. I think they're going to be a pretty well-balanced team. I think he's going to let them breathe, but he's going to want them to clean up some of their stuff in their own end. So some middle ground there. Hey, you can't be as aggressive as you once were, but I'm also not going to go nuts. I'm not going to make you play the neutral zone trap. That's where I am at with Lindy after one game and kind of what my guess was about what he would be coming into the year. So it might be overstated how defensive Lindy wants them to be. I think he doesn't want them to be super defensive. I think he wants to be a little more responsible in that way, but he still wants them to move up and down the ice and score goals. He said tonight he wants them to have fun playing. And Granato used to say this all the time. How do you have fun playing as a hockey player? You want to score a bunch of goals. You want to take chances. You want to, skate with speed. You want to do all that. And I don't think Lindy is gonna take that away too much. What you did see that's different is that Sabre team that was on the ice tonight, that is going to be pretty close to the one you'll see opening night, was hitting everything that moved. Everything that moved, the Sabres were going after it. I was surprised to look up at the end and see that they only registered 15 hits on the night. I thought it might have been closer to 30, but hitting stats are so tough, right? Like, every arena is different, and you just never know what qualifies as a hit. But I thought the Sabres were really physical in this game. And the Penguins, man, I think they were feeling bullied because they were taking exception to a lot of it at the end of the game. One hit maybe kind of started a lot of it that I do think was a little over the line. Nicholas Aube-Kubel on that Sabres fourth line, which, by the way, great game. I mean, they were all over it. Lindy compared it to having a good run game in football, was that fourth line. Like setting the tone, controlling the game just after you. I kind of got that. Like, they were hounding the Penguins, that line. There was one play in the third period, though, where a Penguin skater kind of turned his back and Aube-Kubel decided to run through him anyway. It did it right into the boards. And I think he had opportunity to pull up, and he decided not to. It wasn't as bad on the replay as I thought it was live. But still, I think that kind of set the Penguins off because they're like, hey, dude, come on. You're already beating us by 6. It's the preseason. This isn't even our NHL squad. And you're blasting this kid from behind into the wall. And the Penguins were hot about that. And one of the Penguins tried to fight Aube-Kubel in the next shift, but Aube-Kubel did not want to. So that hit would have been the one for me that was over the line. Otherwise, it was just the Sabres were bullying them. And they were playing with this pissed off attitude. Zach Benson, man, was everywhere. He is so annoying to play against because that dude is such a good forechecker. His angles, where his stick is, there was one shift in the second period, I think, where where the Sabres had puck possession with Cousins and Quinn and Benson. And there were 4 occasions where the Penguins got the puck back and couldn't get it out of their own end because Benson forced a turnover on 4 separate accounts on the same shift to keep the play in the Penguins' territory. He was so good in that way. And he got into it a little bit in the corner in the third period where the Penguin guy, Holloway, I believe it was, kind of shoved his helmet off, and Benson got right up and he was throwing with his gloves. He's not afraid to get in there for a guy who's probably 5 years older than him. So Benson was playing with a kind of a pissed off attitude in this game. I'm sure Lindy loved seeing that from Benson. One texter's like, man, Benson's a maniac. Was one text I got. I got 4 in a row on Benson in that sequence. So he was playing that way. Thompson, there was an extra whack by Glass. Cody Glass took a little extra whack at Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen on one play when he was covering it. And how the Sabres react? Without hesitation. It wasn't like you had to think about it. Without hesitation, Tage Thompson grabs him and throws him into the boards. It was very much a game to set the tone against the Penguins, even though it was preseason. It was very much the Sabres showing the league and showing Sabre fans and showing their coach, Lindy, we are not taking BS from other teams anymore. We'll see if that lasts, right? It's easy to do that in the first couple games. It's harder to do that when you're in the dog days of January and February, and you're on the Wednesday of the season. It's a middle portion of the year to sustain that level of energy, to sustain that instinct to just go after them, just to bully them around. We'll see if the Sabres are able to hold that up. But they were playing that way in this game where they wanted to bully the Penguins, not just beat them. And I think they definitely did that. Finally, when we come back, I've got 3 goals that I want to go through a little bit more in depth because there were some things that I noticed that could be something to take away into the regular season. That when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you want to go to one of these games, you could have done that today, and tickets wouldn't have been expensive at all. But hey, if you're looking to go to Monday Night Football coming up in a couple of days, the Sabres will have more preseason games at KeyBank Center. You can check all of these out on the Gametime app. And of course, when the Sabres regular season gets going, check it out there as well. Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks. Makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. Gametime Picks. So what they do is filter out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. They have a super deal for everybody. It's not just sports, right? It's concerts, it's comedy shows, everything you need. Seat views before you buy. When you're scrolling through, you look and see exactly what your angle is going to be. If you're in the corner and you're looking down, if you're down by the glass at a hockey game and you don't know what the distortion might be, you have that as well. Gametime, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. I mean, they have the most flexible ticket coverage in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sabres win their preseason opener by a score of 7-3. The Sabres will next be in action in the preseason on Monday against the Columbus Blue Jackets. That will be home at KeyBank Center. Speaking of Gametime, go check out the tickets there. 5 o'clock on Monday. Now, the Bills play at 7. Keep that in mind. But for how cheap tickets are, I mean, not a bad idea. Maybe you go to the game, you go to the first 2 periods, and then you leave before the third, and just in time to watch the Bills game at a bar within walking distance or whatever. So you could manage both. You could manage both. And then 3 road preseason games. The Sabres will play a preseason game in Germany against Red Bull Munich this week on Friday, and then they will have a very strange home preseason game Monday, September 30th against the Detroit Red Wings, which will feature none of their NHL squad because their NHL squad will be in Europe by that point in time. So keep that in mind. That's what's ahead in the preseason slate. All right, 3 goals I wanted to talk about from this game. The Sabres beating the Penguins. By the way, I went back and watched them, obviously, every round, but I missed 4 goals live because I walked away in the middle of the second period. I was just making dinner, and I had the game on my phone, like kind of up above while I was chopping stuff up. And I walked away for, I swear it was 5 minutes. 5 minutes maybe of real time. And I came back after it was 2-1. I walked back to see the Sabres celebrating a goal. I think it was Cousins. And I went, oh, cool. All right, nice. Let's see this goal. And I saw the goal. It was nice. And then I saw the score, 6-1. How did they score? I think it was 4 goals in 3 minutes of game time. I mean, that was ridiculous. And it felt like it was only 5 minutes of real time. What was it actually? Let's see. The Sabres scored in the second period. I saw the Peterka goal. That was the 2-1 goal. And then Power at 2:29, Jokiharju at 3:29, Lafferty at 4:20, and then Peterka at 5:26. So yeah, not even 3 minutes. 2 minutes and 57 seconds of ice time. The Sabres scored 4 goals. That is unbelievable that happened. And I missed them all live, but I did, of course. I went back and rewound 5 minutes and I watched them all. So anyways, a couple of those goals I wanted to get to. Let's start with the third goal. Kind of some takeaways from this game beyond the style and kind of the overall. More like specific. The third goal the Sabres scored. Owen Power from Bo Byram and Yuri Kulik. By the way, in this game, 10 Sabres registered a point. There were only 12 players on the ice. Or wait, that can't be right. Whatever it was, all I have in my notes that Krebs and Rusek were the only players that didn't register a point. Maybe I'll double check that, but that's what I have in my notes. Just Krebs and Rusek didn't get a point. The power goal. Owen Power blasts a one-timer past the Pittsburgh netminder to get the goal. That is going to be something to watch for this year. Owen Power, I've said it about him maybe for a year and a half, that I think there are a couple things he needs to work on. One thing that I've wanted to see him work on more than anything is that shot, that finish. Can you get more of your weight behind your stick? Because for being 6'6", 220, he does not have a hard shot at all, or hasn't at least. Nice to see. For me having that criticism against him for years now, nice to see preseason game number 1, him leaning into a one-timer and having enough force behind it to get it past the goaltender for a goal. So loved seeing that from Owen Power. Just the type of goal that it was, just love seeing a one-timer like that. The 5th goal the Sabres scored, Sam Lafferty. This goes to the Lindy point about their run game line, if you will, or the energy line, which I think this is going to be the line. Lafferty back at center the way we kind of thought it would happen. He wasn't at center last week at practice. This line, I think, should be the way. This should be the way forward. They were hounding teams. And what happened on this goal, you saw some speed. Beck Malenstein gets behind the defense. He tries to go backhand, forehand. Doesn't have the hands to do it. Goalie makes a save. But what's happening around the puck? Before Malenstein's even took the shot and had it saved, watch that playback and watch what Sam Lafferty and Nicholas Aube-Kubel are doing. They are already circling like sharks. They are already gunning for the open pockets where the puck could fall. And that's how Lafferty gets the rebound goal. He's already at the spot. It's not a reactionary goal. It's not, oh, puck loose, who gets there first? It was Lafferty's already moving to that space because that's unoccupied space. If the puck goes there, he knows he's going to be the first one to get it. He puts the puck in the back of the net for a goal. Love that. It's the exact style you want to see from that line, those types of goals, and seeing some speed on display, which the Sabres' fourth lines of the past have not always had. Girgensons has had it. Okposo has not. That's for sure. And then finally, the 7th goal. This line was incredible. Cousins, Quinn, Benson. I was so impressed by them all night. I love seeing Benson get that top 6 opportunity. I think he really flourished with it. This goal, though, Benson does fine. Like, he's in on the forecheck. It's kind of a double. Benson and Quinn are on the Penguin defender. And Quinn is the one that forces the turnover that goes right to Cousins, who then finishes in the back of the net. 2 things I love seeing on that play. How aggressive, how great the Sabres looked forechecking and forcing a defenseman into a mistake on that play is a good sign. And Cousins being able to finish is a good sign because his goal scoring is super important this year. And it is one of the things I am most concerned about this year is him being able to get back to that level of play. Love seeing it from Cousins in this game. Love that line in general. Honestly, the only thing I didn't love in this game is Luukkonen. And I don't know, it's preseason. This is how it works, right? You want to take away the good, but you kind of want to ignore the bad. All right, let's not ignore the bad. It was a little bit of an off night for Luukkonen. Jesse Puljujarvi scored a couple goals right in a row. He got dangled on a breakaway by Puljujarvi, and then he beat him on a wrist shot right after. He didn't lose them the game. He was fine. He saved 15 of, I wouldn't even say he was fine. You save 15 shots out of 18. That's not a great night. But so let's just call it what it was. He wasn't a great night from Luukkonen. He probably wants a couple of those back, but whatever. I'm not worried. That's my synopsis on basically the night in general. All right, next up, Monday night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you want to check out our Locked On Sabres text line, be sure to do that. Some great text, some great chatter going back and forth today. One other, before we'll leave you on this text from this texter. This physical play is one aspect that needed fixing, not fighting, but being physical, not being bullied around. Good to see the tables flipped in this game. One of my overall takeaways of this game is exactly what that texter wrote in. Thanks for listening today to the Locked On Sabres podcast, making us your first listen every day. Be sure to check out Locked On NHL. Be sure to check out Locked On Bills for Bills and Jaguars on Monday. We'll talk to you next time here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.